Okay, so in the previous video on the same subject, New Left, I had just given an introduction that was based on my keen studies, personalized studies on related to all the literatures available on New Left. Some people might be curious why I'm talking so much on New Left. This is very important to understand and to know the New Left, because there has always been talk of alternatives to capitalism. Is the capitalism final destiny as an economic system of human being, or does there really exist any credible, authentic alternative also to capitalism? Since the time of Karl Marx, there have been, Marxism was all about presenting an alternative to capitalism, which he claimed that it will falter apart due to its own seeds of destruction, giving birth to a new economic system, socialist, and that will lead ultimately to communist system. But the 20th century is the evidence that even though partially and coercively and forcibly deployed, experimented and implemented, it itself means the socialist system, even much before becoming or converting into capitalist system, it itself faltered, splintered apart by 1990s, not only in USSR but in other countries of Asia and Africa also, which were deeply influenced, or rather just surviving or working as a shadow of USSR. Not only USSR, but the shadow, or rather pseudo socialist countries, India included, they all faltered apart, and they had no choice but to resort to hardcore capitalism, beginning with Washington Consensus, and Washington Consensus ultimately leading to full-fledged capitalism, neoliberalism. So that alternative did not sustain. It did not sustain. Now, but the idea of alternative to capitalism has always been there. Even though it might not have come into existence as a reality, yet the idea always remained there, especially in United States and Western Europe, the headquarters of capitalism, the hotbed of capitalism. Their universities themselves, that's irony. That's another irony of the history, that in the very soul of capitalism, their universities became the headquarters of the idea of alternative to capitalism, and that continued. It is again a paradoxical acceptance that one of the largest number of leftist political theorists, economists, and international relation theorists can be found in American universities, followed by UK, France, Germany, and the rest of European Union countries. So the idea of left, whether it is Marxist left or democratic left, democratic socialistic left, has survived and sustained not in socialistic countries but mainly in capitalist countries in their universities. So this idea thrived and keeps on thriving in academic centers of the headquarters of capitalism like US, UK, and rest of Western Europe. Now, what is at present the new left? In economic terms, I have tried to study it up to my own personal satisfaction, because it is very much important to know that what is the alternative, and does it really have the potential to substitute, to replace capitalism as in a reality as an economic system or not. That's very important to know. right? Especially when certain political parties like Labour Party of Britain has officially decided to launch New Left as its electoral manifesto, as the part of its electoral manifesto, as the economic agenda. In America also, the Democratic Party, Joe Biden's party, there is a tradition, there is a history that Democrats in America are academically and intellectually dominated by leftist thinkers, including leftist economists. It's interesting to know whether this leftist economy or leftist idea in America and Britain and in the rest of Western Europe, which continues to be the hotbed of capitalism, is it really the Marxist leftism or not? So we can see that to a great extent it is Marxist. It often claims that its ultimate destination is to establish in the world a classless society. So to that extent, theoretically and ideologically, the New Left continues to be, if not exactly Marxist, then very much close to Marxist left. But the way they present in the democratic setup and in the capitalist setup, and democratic setup that is characterized by electoral system. So when the ideologies are brought into electoral system, then they get changed. They have to be modified. It's not a radical revolution. It's not a revolutionary change. It has to be implemented through electoral process. So can we say something which is radical implemented through electoral methods? To what extent and to what limit can it be Marxist? Because Marxism was not about transformation or participating in the transformations through electoral process. We have seen throughout the world that howsoever radical an idea, the moment it is put into implementation through electoral process, democratic process, it changes its heart and soul. It barely remains the Marxist leftism. So liberalism overtakes it ultimately. It doesn't remain. So ideologically it might have been Marxist, but when it is brought into that liberal system, it loses its Marxist content, Marxist spirit, revolutionary spirit. Rather, it gets dictated by the mixture of interests, where it is not possible to completely exclude the interest of what is said in classical Marxism, the interest of bourgeoisie. Because electoral process is about whether we accept it or not. Howsoever radical democracy we might have, it cannot completely exclude the interest of haves or upper classes, or what you say in classical liberalism, in classical Marxism, bourgeoisie. Because the parties have to win the election, and winning the election becomes a very tough arithmetic. To win the election, you have to have the support of averagely all the classes. And there are other determinants. It's not only how people vote, it's also about how people are made to vote. So when it comes to how people are made to vote, then those who are not the most determinant factor in elections, they also become equally crucial, because somehow or the other they are in controlling position how elections are held, how people vote. How do the people vote? How do, before voting, the opinion making process is conducted? So it becomes an average process where the interests of all classes are to be included. So democratic process cannot be as radical as the revolutionary process. So this new left agenda of a new economy has to be implemented not through any revolutionary method, not through the method of revolution by what we call proletariat. It's not proletariat's revolution. It has to be implemented through election. It has to be implemented hardcore election. So when such a radical idea is put into electoral process, what are its prospects? Can new left economy really win the election? Even if it wins the election, can it be implemented in the similar manner as it is presented? Even if Labour Party wins the election, even if Democrats in America win the election, even if the left in France and Germany win the election, including India, even if India I am going to discuss separately. So Indian left is so bourgeoisie, is so imitative. It hardly contains any originality. We'll discuss it separately. But even if, just imagine under the leadership of Indian Congress, if Indian left wins the election, first of all, it has to win the election. Second, if it wins the election, how much possible it is to implement it? The history is an evidence, and it shows that it has to make a compromise. It makes a compromise. So left, even under the leadership of Congress, left alone can never ever form the government. Under the leadership of Congress, if left occupies the power at center or maybe even at many states, what is the record of this left in implementing those ideas? It's very abysmal, poor, decimal. It compromises the moment it comes to power. It compromises with the rightist business class, and a hodgepodge left agenda is put into implementation. We'll discuss it separately. First of all, let us focus for a while to understand what are the major proposals of this new left, mainly working from America and Britain. As I said in the first video, transatlantic left. It's a new left, transatlantic. On the one side, there is North America. On the one side of Atlantic, there is Europe, and mainly West Europe. On the other side it is North America. It's basically Britain and USA. So the new left is being dominated by the new economists politically belonging to Labour Party and Democrats, those who believe in the politics of Democrats in America and Labour Party in Britain. It's very strong. The new left is very strong, even if they are not in power. Actually, their strength lies not in being in political power. Their actual strength lies in being in academic power, intellectual power, media power. So media-wise, university-wise, research-wise, they are more dominant than right, undoubtedly. Their control over media is 60 to 70%. They may not be in power, but their control over media is 60 to 70%. In most of the capitalist countries, their control over universities is 60 to 70%. So right and right-wing political parties may be in political power, but media, universities, research institutes continue to research, means that humanity research, not the science research, that continues to be in the occupation or domination of leftist researchers or intellectuals or academicians. Okay. So some of the major proposals or postulates I have tried to identify about new left are following. I have written it on this board. I just first want to read it out, and then secondly will will try to, in my own understanding and language, will try to explain it what actually I have understood. That I think because I have devoted a lot of time to understand and research this new left, read 3-4 books and several articles, research published in research journals, most important World Affairs. That's my most favorite journal, World Affair, Foreign Policy, The Guardian, and The Economist, right? And some specialized article from Wikipedia also, and then read some important 3-4 books also. So, after having gone through all this wide literature, what I come to understand, the common proposals they want to make is restructuring and redistributing the power within the company. So this is very interesting. Unlike Marx, who may have, or rather who exactly did not favor the private corporations, even a state, I mean, there could be state-run corporations under socialist state as a transitional method, which will be ultimately replaced by communist system. But of course, there was no place for private corporations. But New Left does not hate or does not abhor the very idea of private corporation. This is very interesting. The private corporations shall be there from the very beginning. So it is presumed from the very beginning that in the New Left system in the beginning, there shall continue to exist the private corporations. However, the structuring, the power structuring, means financial power, ownership power within the company shall be restructured in favor of employees rather than the so-called owners. So companies should be, private companies should be so restructured that the ownership does not dictate the policy decisions, policy making of how a company works. So policy making of the company should remain in the hands of employees. And here it is not about, it's not about this mining company only, all kinds of company, service providing company also, means this software companies also, not only manufacturing, all kinds of companies. Substantial power, power here means the ownership also. The ownership, one ownership like that belongs to founders of the company, founder directors of the company. But as the company grows in size and volume, revenue, the ownership, and automatically if ownership is redistributed amongst employees, the policy making power will also get automatically transferred to the employees. So the owners are and could be entitled to the profit, but not the entire decision making process. So company generate the value through employees, and employees over the period should be transferred the owner, not only the profits but ownership rights also, not only the management, not only the decision making power, but the ownership also. Now there is a question, in private companies also there are hierarchies of employees. So does the New Left economy want to propose that the ownership shall be distributed and redistributed amongst the lower level employees also, whose exact role in value generation might be very low? So do we need to say that the the lower level employees like pantry staff, or what we say, this cleaning staff or kitchen staff, or are they equal in value generator For example, if we take the example of a software company or an e-commerce company, so of course the value is being generated by the employees, software engineers and programmers. 60-70% value is being generated by these employees, right? Now there are lower level employees like the lower level staff like the moppers, sweepers, cleaning, etc. Right? Of course, their value, their contribution in value generation is much low. So, can we say in Marxist sense that this lower level employees whose mathematically calculated contribution is much lower, should they also be transferred the ownership? So ownership will be transferred to all class of employees or only to the real value generators? If it is real value generators who are 60 to 70% value generator, mostly the hardcore employees, right? So is it to be transferred only to these hardcore value generators or to all class of employees equally? We have to separate 30 to maybe 30-40% profit for the capitalist because their capital also has contribution in value generation. We cannot say all values being generated only by the employee. Capital does have a role. So if we exclude, if we reduce the profit being given to capitalists for their investment, then 60 to 70% value should go to the hardcore employee value generators. So ownership should be transferred up to 60% to these hardcore employees, fine. But what ratio or proportion of ownership should be transferred to the lower class employees? If they are transferred or given the value, the ownership according to their contribution, which may be 2%, then there will continue to exist two classes even within the employees, even in the class of employee itself. Now, these employees, if they become owner, hardcore owner, are they going to be sympathetic to this lower class employees? What will be the relations between, if they become the owner, what will be the relation between these middle level employees, hardcore employees, generators of value up to 60 to 70%, and the low level employees? So this is fine that to the extent the hardcore employee generate the value, ownership should be transferred to them. But are not they going to be the capitalists in the same manner as the owners and founder directors? There are a lot of evidences and data-based evidences that the human, the approach of the employees, middle class, middle level employees or even top level employees are almost inhuman towards the lower class employees. So in this sense, the redistribution of power within the company through transfer of ownership to employees is not going to resolve the problem. It's going to create a new kind of conflicts between the employees of a company and the lower level employees of the company, who might be working in very menial capacity, sweepers, moppers, tea makers, tea servers, etc. Their numbers may be smaller in a company, but they are larger. Their number is much larger outside the company. All house cleaning works, cooking works, construction works, sweeping works are to be done by this class. will it not lead to a new kind of class conflict? Certainly it will lead to a new class of class conflict. So ultimately, this idea of new left, that by transferring ownership to the extent they generate the value from the founder directors of the company to the employee, we can actually redistribute the power, that is not logical, because it is redistribution of the power only to a very small section of employees who claim to be actually they are the value generators, but these employees are a small number. They constitute a very small number of working population in any country. What would be its repercussion? What kind of new class conflict may emerge between high level, middle level and low level employees? That is another issue to be discussed in detail. So to this extent, New Left's proposal to redistribute the power within the company is not the final solution. Okay, but this is one of their, as I have always said, that New Left is more about New Left represents the conflict between the large corporations and small corporations, large capitalists and middle-sized capitalists. It talks about the middle level, a small business versus big business. So in the center of New Left is the small business. But what about the smallest business? In the center of New Left is employees, working employees. So New Left carries the interest of the agenda of employees in the big corporations. So it is the revolt of employees against big corporations. I mean, big corporations means the owners and founders and directors. Fine. But what about the smallest businesses? What about the lowest level of employees? Will not there emerge a conflictual relation between the employees of the companies and lowest level of employees of the company? Lowest class, which doesn't have any, knowledge skill, which doesn't contribute through knowledge or skill, high class skill, but only through manual skill, only through human, force, labor, hardcore physical labor. Okay, this is one. Now second, they say building New Left economic model. So the New Left economists emphasize that it should not be left only to academic discourse and debate. Unless we build our own economic models, we cannot be creditable in the eye of people, voters. So to become creditable and authentic, we need to build, like capitalism, we need to build our own models which should be visible to the voters, to the public opinion makers, to the media. So capitalism sustains, thrives and survives and succeeds because there are visible models. Anyone can see them. What makes capitalism often invincible is its visibility. It's visible everywhere. It is visible in the form of big corporations. It is visible in the form of large number of employees from big educational institutes to be absorbed as employees under this corporates. So it's everywhere visible. It's visible through market capitalization. It is visible in the form of employment it generates. So everywhere it is visible. So unless New Left economy also has its own visible models, it cannot be trusted by the people. The electoral politics cannot actually be can be conducted in the name of New Left. So they propose that we should build city economies. So through municipal elections, through local bodies election, the left should come to power. Must not hate the power, must come to power. Coming to power and then build a new leftist economic model over a city or over a smaller region, villages, etc. So we need to build city economies, and many leftists, new left economists, have gone beyond the academics and really worked to build new left companies, hardcore companies working on the new left economic principles. I will give the example in how in New Maryland in America, and there is another model. That is model Cleveland model in America, and one model last time I discussed was Preston model of Manchester. So the leftists have focused on transforming their ideas into reality by building new city economies, so that new left economy could be made visible to the public, to the voters, and to the media, so that people could trust that yes, it is not an idea, it can be actually translated into a reality. A people control, an employees control, a local people control economic model is possible. So we need to build models for that, right? So to this extent, they don't hesitate in proposing also the wealth creation under new left economic model. Wealth creation should not be left only to capitalist organization. We should take the public into account that wealth can be created even under new left economic model. Okay. Then third is local resources should be brought under community ownership. Now, community has to be understood. So we in India understand or believe that because we, of course, will go by our own Indian examples. So in India, community generally means caste-based communities, religious communities, linguistic communities, right? Ethnic communities, cultural communities. So we in India understand community in this context. But community is not only historical and traditional. Community is not a thing of tradition and past only. Communities can be new and modern and contemporary also. So in West, community means the modern and city-based communities. It's not only rural area, village community. It's not village community only. In villages also there could be communities, but communities are more in urban areas. So let us not misunderstand that communities do not exist in urban areas. So we in India understand the community means something that is in past, village community, religious community, etc., etc. What are the urban communities? The urban communities are, they could be registered societies, they could be RWAs, means resident welfare associations, they could be cultural communities formed by intellectuals of university professors, communities, local representative bodies, etc. So the focus is on reviving or revitalizing, or rather giving more powers to urban communities, because in West, especially in America, and the major population, Atlantic region, major population of course lives in urbanized area. So they have to revitalize, they have to reestablish communities in urban areas, because their entire population is living in urban area. They do have rural areas, but the major but their major population uh, living in right. So new left proposes, if we cannot win the national elections, let us start winning elections at local level. Let us occupy politically the municipal bodies, and let us make use of this power of ruling the municipal bodies to build our role models of new left economy. So let us build the new left economic models through cities, through villages, through cooperatives, so that we can show to the world that new left economic model is the sustainable economic model. It is really an alternative to highly centralized capitalist system, which is working mainly for big businesses, giant corporations. Then only we can win the national elections also when we have credible evidences, substantial number of evidences to show it to our voters and to the world at large. And that could be the method of transferring, or rather ensuring, the control of the local people over local resources. So in the conflicts of local versus global, by capturing the local bodies, we can also build the system through which the local people's control over local resources can be institutionalized. Okay, so that is one. The next is making cooperative as a capitalist model. So not only, I mean, in chronic capitalism, it's giant corporations that dominate the capitalist system. The new left is proposing here that developing the cooperatives as a new norm of capitalism. So again, the fundamental of new left is not against the fundamentals of capitalism, because I think they do believe that capitalism as an economic organization system is irreplaceable. So the strength of capitalism in organizing the economy based on the classical liberal economist models as propounded by Adam Smith, Ricardo, etc., that is division of labor, that is not discarded by the new left economists. So the spirit, I think the soul of capitalism is what Adam Smith propounded, that can't be. In any system, it can never be replaced. It's science, it's pure natural science. Division of labor. Division of labor is at the core of economic system, whether it is capitalist or leftist or whatever, socialist. No economy can effectively work without the scientific principle as founded, as you can say discovered by Adam Smith, division of labor. So division of labor to build an economy of scale and scope is irreplaceable even in New Left. So New Left doesn't propose to do away with the foundation of economics, the foundation of economic organization itself, but they just want to change how does it function, right? So they want to make cooperatives the driving engine of capitalism, and not the corporate or giant big companies. So in place of companies whose sole motive is to reserve the profits for the investor or the owner and the investors of the company, cooperative model is a different model, which is more distributive. The cooperative model is more decentralized, more distributive, more people-oriented. It has much more flexibility to return profit, to redistribute profit to its members who can be farmers, who can be small investors, who can be laborers. So cooperative model is much more decentralized, democratic, and distributive. So New Left is proposing cooperative model as a driving engine of capitalism rather than company model of capitalism. So world has so far seen the company driven, the corporations driven capitalism. New Left is proposing cooperative organizations driven or cooperative bodies capitalism. Capitalism is driven by cooperative organizations, and we understand in India very much. We have in India the cooperative models, several cooperative models like we have Sudha, Amul, so many models, which even a common person can understand it easily that the cooperative model is more decentralized, more distributive of the profits, and more democratic. So if we have to make capitalism work actually in the interest of people, democratic means masses, then in their opinion, cooperative model is much more sustainable than company model. So it proposes the establishment of cooperative which shall run the economies at local level. Right? That is why we'll see there are many, there is a slogan in Britain of doubling the cooperatives. So Labour Party has included in its manifesto that it will double. Wherever it gets the opportunity to come in power, it will double the number of cooperative organizations. We'll discuss it in case of India. So some of the backward states, including Bihar, is a case which has, under the leadership of its socialist chief minister Nitish Kumar, Bihar can be counted in one of the leading cooperative organizations, the state having one of the largest number of cooperative bodies. But due to underdeveloped infrastructure, due to highly archaic laws, this cooperative model is not properly functioning and bringing profit to its members. But so far as the number of cooperatives is concerned, some of the states in India have already large number of cooperatives. What would be its implication for India and the states? That is very interesting to know. Okay. And next it says that transforming the relationship between state and capitalism, workers and employees, local and global, and haves and have-nots. So New Left proposes to transform the relationship between the state and capitalism. Capitalism is not something that completely operates outside a state. It operates within the system or within the framework built by the state, the legal framework, and that legal framework becomes the much broader framework. So a state plays a crucial role in how capitalism works. If capitalism has favored and worked more in the interest of bigger corporations, billionaires, etc., then the state cannot be completely absolved of its responsibilities and of its role. If big corporations have allowed the billionaires to double and triple and quadruple, then a state, the role of a state cannot be completely forgiven. There is the role of policies of the state. So there is a relation between the capitalism we have and the state. New Left seeks to redefine, transform the relation between the existing capitalism and a state to make it a cooperative-led capitalism, a people-led capitalism, a democratic capitalism. A democratic capitalism, they don't hesitate in using this word also. They often use the term democratic capitalism. So they have often, like democratic socialism, they have often used the term democratic capitalism, democratizing capitalism. They don't hesitate in retaining the term capitalism with the prefix of democratic, decentralizing, people's capitalism. So they interchangeably use these words: people's capitalism, decentralized capitalism, democratic capitalism. Correct? Okay. So they want to transform the relation. And how to transform? To transform in the way that the state works more in favor of cooperative-led capitalism, people's capitalism, small businesses. So policies and laws are so made that they protect, they patronize small businesses, smaller businesses. So big businesses, corporates should not kill the smaller businesses, the local businesses. So it is possible to use the apparatuses and the instruments and the powers of the state to make the policies and laws which can vibrate, which can recalibrate, which can make the small businesses bigger, larger, profitable, productive, much more beneficial to the local generators, local producers, especially smaller producers. So to utilize the state's power to bring the smaller and the local into the center. This is how they seek to transform the relation between state and capitalism. Capitalism, fine, but not at the cost of smaller and local. The state's power should be so used that the local business, the local capitalism, and the smaller capitalism should be strengthened. But there is again a problem. This is a fundamental flaw which I will discuss in the challenges of New Left. But I must highlight here that there is a fundamental question, and that question is, can local grow without global? Can a small grow without big? This is one question asked in two formats, but the question is one. Is it possible for the local to grow without their relation with the big? This is one fundamental economic question. Can we really build an economy of small businesses without its relation with the big business? I mean, what is the relation proposed by left economists which should exist between big and a small? Do they want to say that big should be completely annihilated, and by annihilating and abolishing the small can really grow? What should be the actual growth of, what should be the ultimate growth of a small in the absence of or at the cost of big? To what extent the big can be degraded, relegated? Of course, so if we try to redefine the relation between big and small, so the big can be reduced, but can it also be abolished and annihilated? What could be the mathematical relation between big and small? That is yet to be discovered. That is the next stage of economic thinking. New Left has not reached that level of economic thinking. They are at present just thinking about, because they have to win the election, they have to create an alternative populism. So they are talking about a small because it can win the election for them. It can help them garner the votes. But the real economic, the scientific economic question remains unanswered, and that is, what should be the proportionate relation between big and small? And similarly, what should be the proportionate relation between the local and global? Again, can the local grow infinitely and optimally without global? We have seen, before globalization, the entire world economy, wasn't it local? Yes, purely it was local. So what happened to this absolutely localized business? The fact is that I will try to discuss, in my personal understanding, what could be the scientific relation between the local and global and small and business. I can discuss it, but here I would say simply that there has to be discovered a scientific proportionate relation between local and global. In my commonsensical understanding, local cannot grow without global. So local cannot be brought at the cost of global. There must be some global opportunity for local to grow. But if global has become a problem for some, then yes, we can try to redefine it. But in redefining, we cannot do away with the global. Similarly, we cannot do away with the big. Right? This is one question that I will discuss in the challenges before, in the next video, in the next class, under a heading, the challenges before new left proposals. But at present, they are proposing that transforming the relation between the big and small and the local and global. Fine. So you're also saying the workers and employees, right? Employers. So that I have already discussed that the employers means those who own the company, owners. So in the capacity of owners, they are employers. So as I said, they also propose the entire restructuring and redistribution of the power. So the ownership being decentralized and devolved on the employees. So in this way, it is already defined how they want to transform the relation between workers and employers. I mean, they want to make sure that the workers are the owners. Workers have the greater say in the making of policies of the corporates. Consumers' interests are well taken care of before making any policy decision of the company. Public interests at large are taken care of in decision making of the company concerned. And haves and have-nots, that is not about Marxist haves and have-nots, where there were only two classes, haves and have-nots, so that was too much generalized. Here, minimizing the differences between haves and have-nots. But yes, left has an ambition to to develop their model to the extent that have-nots have the greater say in the running of economy. Okay, now to change how capitalism works, as I said, that New Left, despite all its radicalism in building the alternative to existing capitalism, it often chooses the word capitalism. So in reality, it doesn't want to do away with the fundamentals of capitalism, as is based on division of labor, market system. It doesn't seek to completely abolish the market system, but it just wants to redefine the role of market also, just wants to redefine the role of labor of division also. So it wants to change how capitalism works. Capitalism is a scientific process of economic organization. To that extent, it has to be written even under New Left economy, no problem. But capitalism must not be allowed to work only for few people, billionaires and trillionaires and some big corporations. If capitalism is a scientific system of organizing economy, then why it must not work for all? The problem in capitalism is that it has been hijacked by few people. No problem in accepting the fact that capitalism is a scientific system of economic organization, but it must work for all. That has to be transformed. Why it is not working? Why has it been prevented or withheld from working for the rest of the people? So changing how does it work means how to make capitalism work for as many people as possible, and for all. Why not for all? Why not only for oligarchs and not only for as many people as possible? Why not for all? So capitalism must work. It means that the New Left must be believing in the capacity of capitalism to work for all, they must be convinced somewhere that capitalism can be made to work for all. They are not using the term socialism or communism. Nowhere they are using the term communism. They are always saying capitalism. How to make capitalism work? It means that they do have foundational belief that capitalism can be made to work for all. Right? So yes, capitalism can be made to work for all. It just needs to change, recalibrate how has it been forced to work. So if it is working more in favor of few people, then it is because of how few people have captured capitalism. The power of a state has to be so utilized that it could be made to work for all. First, to work for maximum, many, and then for all. Then we are saying that this change about how capitalism works has not to be state-led or market-led. It has to be led by employees. It has to be led by consumers. So this transformation of capitalism from oligarch-centric or from crony capitalism or from corporate-centric, means big corporate-centric, to masses, it can be conducted only when it is driven by employees and consumers. So the interests of consumers and employees have to be clubbed, have to be merged. So when consumers are made conscious, the way citizens are made conscious about their political rights, similarly, if consumers are made aware of their consumer rights, and if consumers drive the making of new economy led by employees, then it is exactly possible to build the new economy. But it must be led by employees and consumers. It must not be led by the state alone. Rather, the state should be influenced. The state should be controlled in redirecting capitalism. But this redirection must be led by the jointly by the employees and consumers. Then they are saying this is very interesting, and this is much more fundamental in New Left. They are saying that we need to build an economy which suits the society rather than society being subordinated to economy. This is very fundamental and original. This is very original in thinking. As of now, I have discussed how they want to transform the capitalism, but something here at this point they are proposing something very original. If I should not use the term radical and revolutionary, then at least they are using something very, very original. They are saying we need to build an economy which suits the societal interest. They go on to say societal values. Means society should have what? Primal importance in building the economy. Social values. In social values, there could be human values also. Determine the making of economy rather than society being subordinated to the principles of economy. So far, the principles of economy have tried to remake, direct, dictate whatever the society. So in public policy, dominated by economic thinking, the core economic thinking, mathematically determined economics, and that economics dominating the making of public policy, that has created the society so far. So we can say second half of 20th century has witnessed the making of society through economic policy, and economic policies made under economic principles. So economics had always upper hand. Society and social values being relegated to or being are being subordinated to economic principle. This was guided by the idea that resources are very much limited, and their allocation amongst the members of society has to be done scientifically, and for that economic principles are the solution. Now the left here proposes that we need to build an economy which suits the society. And what is society? In society there is predominance of relationship, predominance of value system, norms. What are these norms? Honesty, dignity, humanity. In society, what do we have? If we try to give eminence to or prominence to society in comparison to economy, what would it imply? It will certainly imply that social values based on relationship, empathy, sympathy, compassion, relationship, cooperation, taking care, that should dominate the making of economy. So it means that the vulnerables in the society, marginalized in the society, have-nots in the society deserve much more care. This is how society can determine the economy. So if society is given priority, then what will the economy be like? The marginalized ones, the vulnerable ones, the have-nots, the poor people will get, of course, will get prominence. So if a new economy has to be built according to society, it means that social norms, social values, and what are social values? They are human values. So human values should predetermine the making of economy. This is very original but problematic. Can we really make an economy according to human values? This is a question of science. To what extent it is possible to build an economy according to human values? Because the challenge is that the human values are infinite. Human values give birth to infinite needs, aims and aspiration. But the problem in economics, the main challenge that economics deal with, or rather the very birth of economics came into existence to deal with one human problem, and that problem was human aims, aspiration, desires are infinite, but the resources to fulfill them are finite, limited. This was the question that gave birth to the science of economics. But again, if we try to give prominence to human values, then it means nothing but unquantifiable desires, unquantifiable needs. How infinite, unquantifiable desires can be fulfilled by the resources which, like always, are finite and limited? So this is a big challenge, although it is a genuine proposal from the left, but it is not new. It has been proposed. Marx also was a humanitarian. Karl Marx, it is believed and it is said, it is argued by the Marxist followers that he was a great humanitarian, and it was not the mechanical industrialization but poetical humanism that drove Marx towards the compassionate humanitarian communism, ideology of communism. If it is to be believed, then Marx was also driven by humanism, and New Left are also looking like humanists. That is why they are proposing that it is always good, it is always good to look more human. But the challenge is that, and the challenge that economics faces is that the resources are finite and limited. The human values put humans at a level where their dreams and desires are infinite. Humans are so great. The greatness and dignity of humanity, of humans, is so vast that it is impossible to fulfill through limited material resources. Material resources are limited, but the scope of being human is unlimited. If the scope of being human is non-materialistic, then there would be no problem. But the problem is that to be able to live a completely dignified human life, we need material resources. Had it not been the condition, then it would have been much easier to live a great dignified human life without material resources. But the problem is that bigger the scope of humanism, bigger is the need for resources. So where are the resources? So if we have to build a society, completely free from economic principles, science of economics, then there will be a challenge. Where are the material resources? Do we need to redistribute the material resources in a manner that all kinds of accumulations in economy of scale are essential for effective production, for cost-effective production? So do we want to redistribute the resources in a manner that economy of scale is totally disrupted, and every household should become a producing unit, like what we had the system in medieval ages, in 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, without economy of scale, where the cost of production because of labor cost will become so high that it would almost become impossible to trade in locally produced commodities and services, right? So this is a big challenge which I should discuss in the next chapter, next class, that is challenges of New Left principles. But their proposal is that we should forget about economy, we should focus on society, and we should create a humanitarian society. So economy should be driven by society and not vice versa. That is their proposal. The next they are saying that not economics, means the New Left says that we are not proposing a new economics, rather we are proposing a new worldview. But this is again the same thing. You are proposing a new worldview that should be based on, according to you, community, right? Local, small, humanitarian, redistributed, fine. But again, there is the problem of how to produce cost-effective. How to produce cost-effectively. If it is only about producing locally to fulfill the local needs, then it would lead to disruption of global economy. But we know very well that any disruption of global economy would be equally detrimental for local economy as well. That we need to discuss and to understand how the disruption of global economy can also be disastrous for local economy. But New Left here proposes that we want not a new economics, we want a new worldview. What is this new worldview? Working more for smaller people, local people, low income people, etc., etc. So that is the challenge. How can we make the economy working for low income? Is it possible by disrupting and destroying the big incomes? That is the challenge which I will pick up in the next class. Okay. Then next they are saying that as of now, the entire ecosystem for the economy is working in favor of and in interest of big businesses, billionaires, trillionaires, etc. We need a totally new ecosystem. A new ecosystem means a new kind of policy makers at state, at all level, implementers, bureaucrats, they all should be oriented towards new left economy. As of now, the ecosystem favors the big business, the corporates, the big corporates. So we need to build a new ecosystem which should be working more in the interest of local and smaller and the low income people and employees rather than the owners and the founder directors, CMD, etc. And the last they are proposing is it is not enough only to build the idea for new left. It is equally important, rather more important, to build the support for new economics. So how to build the support for new economics? Through media, through research institutes, through political parties, by forming the government at local level and then at national level, through research, through academics, through universities, through building global networking. And that is why New Left is not just an idea, it is already a network. New Left economists are already well networked. They have several institutions in England, in Britain, in America, and they are building the network, they are extending their network all over the world. So how to popularize the New Left economy as a possibility, as a credible possibility to build network amongst the scholars of all countries. So to build networks, online, offline, people to people, research institutes, to create, there is a proposal by the Labour Party in Britain to build an inclusive growth fund, inclusive economy fund. So not to let it to remain confined only to the idea, but to take it to global networking and global partnership, so that it could be translated into working policies and not only to leave it to the academic discussion and debate. So these are the main proposals of this New Left economy. In the next video, I should discuss who are these main people who are leading it intellectually, academically, and also politically on the ground level, and what are the institutions which have already been built and which are working. And then next part, what are the major challenges before New Left, right? So this part I will discuss in the next video, and one more, I will make one more video on implication of New Left for India. So two I have already made, two more. So I am going to conclude my knowledge and understanding of New Left in 4. So this is second one. Third one is going to be about the institutions and the leaders of New Left, and fourth one is exclusively for India, implication of New Left for India. Thank you.